Welcome to the Unique Boutique. I'm your host, Matt Hodkinson. Now, most consultancies grow by doing great work and hoping that more of it turns up. Deri Hughes calls that delivery-led growth, and it's where a lot of firms get stuck. Deri founded Honeycomb Consulting Skills Training. He spends his time with the leaders of consulting firms who want their teams to be more engaged, more effective, and more profitable. And about half of that work is now in sales training. He's back on the Unique Boutique to break down the 3 levels of consultancy growth. How much of your IP should you be handing over? And what actually happened when he moved his whole business onto AI? Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Unique Boutique, Deri Hughes. How are you today?
Yeah, great, Matt. Thank you for having me on again. Awesome to be having another chat with you.
Well, you of course joined us in our previous iteration in Series 1 when we were the Consultancy Edge. Now as the Unique Boutique, we've got a slightly different angle. And of course, last time we spoke about your journey through consultancy, of forming Honeycomb, as well as your previous life in consulting as well. And we talked a lot about work-life balance, or avoiding burnout and things like that. But we've got some, I think, some more sort of practical and technological, operational kind of discussions to talk about today. And I want to kick off with one thing, because you've been talking about these 3 consultancy growth models. Now, who doesn't want to know about growth? Talk us through what those 3 models are.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that comes up all the time. I'd say about half of what we do at Honeycomb Consulting Skills Training now is sales training, and particularly working with like different levels of people within consulting firms. And the way that I kind of break this down for people, because sales can feel like a bit of a black box and people can be a bit intimidating and people can be worried about like, how do we actually get into sales? The way I break this down is these 3 different levels. So there's the entry level, the non-negotiable bit is what I call delivery-led growth. So this is the idea that you do great work, you create value for your clients, and you get more of it. And you can't grow a consulting P&L of any kind unless you're basically doing good work for clients, not unless you want a real uphill struggle anyway. So that's the kind of base level. There's different levels of reactivity or proactivity in terms of how you operate there. Most firms tend to get a bit stuck in that domain, if I'm honest. Most independent consultants tend to get a bit stuck in that domain as well. What then unlocks that is getting more proactive at delivery-led sales. And there's a point where that proactivity moves you into the second tier, which is the relationship-led sales. And this is about really proactively nurturing your network, deliberately growing your network. And that starts, for most people coming up through a consulting firm, that starts with growing your existing client accounts and learning how to farm, which there's a set of techniques around that. Some people get very bogged down in account planning and creating the super complex Excel-based account plans. The ones who are good at it do a bit of that and then get into action and conversations more than anything. So that relationship-led growth works really well, particularly if you're a bit of an extroverted consultant, if you're a bit of a kind of classic salesperson who loves going to conferences, loves networking, loves having conversations with people, coffee chats on client site and things. The problem is most consultants, in my experience, don't fit into that bucket. Most consultants, when you say, "Oh, just go to a conference and chat to a load of potential clients," would rather stand in the corner clearing their emails. And I've even had that from like the CEO of one of our consulting clients, who personally generates 10 million plus a year of revenue, would rather, if he's at a conference, his default behavior is, "Oh, I've got some really important emails to deal with," rather than going to have those conversations. And I recognize that, because that's me too. Like I'm introverted and I find it really difficult in those environments. The third tier is both like the elite level that you've got to get to if you want to be really, really good at this stuff, but it's also the kind of the safety valve for us introverts. And it's what I call authority-led growth. And the idea here is that you share your expertise freely and clearly and expansively enough that you become known as the go-to expert in your domain. And the obvious place for a lot of people for that is to share stuff on LinkedIn. And a lot of people have a lot of fear about sharing stuff on LinkedIn, or find it cringy, or can't wade through the increasing levels of AI slop that we have there. Traditionally, this is speaking at conferences, not just attending conferences. It's writing books, it's running podcasts and webinars, it's running a mailing list, it's sending personal emails to people. So if you're a consulting team that is trying to grow, that delivery-led growth is non-negotiable. Relationship-led growth will likely be necessary and work for some of your team. And authority-led growth is the thing that really unlocks the idea of inbound leads, cold inbound leads, people booking time in your diary, and you don't know where they came from because they've just engaged with all of your content that's out there. And suddenly they pop up and say, do you know what? Now's the time for me to have a conversation with you. So that's the three tiers we talk about. And for firms, they need to say, where are we now? And what's the next level for us? What's the stretch that's going to unlock the next stage of our growth?
So I'm really keen to dive into this some more, Deri, because I think I recognise those three tiers. Good to see that I'm doing some of the stuff at the top level. So let's start at the foundational level. As you put it, you cannot grow as a business unless you're doing good work. In fact, I mean, there's going to be existential threat if you're not great at what you do. So, but what are some of the issues that you see consultancies face when they're relying on that delivery-led growth to just happen? Because, of course, doing great work is one thing, and it can really generate some great business. And what it kind of cast my mind to is HubSpot's sort of flywheel of growth. It's kind of, you do some marketing, you do some sales, and then you deliver great work sufficient that it feeds the marketing pipeline, and that sort of momentum builds. But does that just happen?
I mean, it can, but you're then operating in the domain of hope, and hope is not a strategy. So what we typically see with firms that have been far too reliant on delivery-led growth is they have very predictable boom and bust cycles. So their senior team in particular sell a load of work. They get right down in the weeds of delivery. They're really focused on being valuable for clients and making sure the quality is where it needs to be. They stop sending the nurture emails. They stop going for lunches. They stop sharing content externally. And then they get their heads up and they're like, I need some more leads. My pipeline's not where it needs to be. And they enter this boom and bust cycle. And there's a whole bunch of psychology, what we call the inner game, that sits behind that and is key to kind of getting out of that boom and bust cycle. But the other thing I find that firms could do more of, and we've got a real example of this for us at the moment, right? We've just won a big contract, the biggest one we've ever won at Honeycomb, actually. As we're going into this contract, we're already starting to have conversations with the client about what's the success story that we want to talk about, that we want to set you up to talk about internally, and that we can talk about externally off the back of this program, and what's it going to take for us to get to that success story. So we're already thinking at this stage about how do we make them look really good, and in doing that, deliver enough value, because we can't tell that success story unless we've had the success. And then off the back of that, that's setting them up to go and be advocates for us across the broader organization off the back of that. So that's like one of the things that we think about in terms of proactive delivery-led growth.
I want to talk about that. You talked about that big deal that you've just done, biggest ever. There'll be lots of consultancies out there that are looking to elevate the level at which they're operating, the size of the organizations, the size of the deals that they're attracting into their consultancy. When it's delivery-led growth, I mean, is it possible for that delivery-led growth to really feed that? Because it feels to me that whatever you're delivering is at a level, and the danger is that you'll attract more at that level rather than being able to elevate the opportunity. Is that what you've found, or is it that delivering great work opens up bigger opportunities, or do you feel that you need to elevate into those upper levels of growth?
I think the more you can be in that authority-led layer, and that being there does a couple of different things. So one, it forces you to be precise about what you're talking about. Like, what is the problem that you solve? Who do you solve it for? What's the solution that you use? And the way that you create success through that. And by being really precise and focused on that, you then become known for solving that kind of problem. And that reputation then enables you to get into the conversations with the bigger organizations. And depending on like how new a consulting firm is, if they haven't got the reputation and the track record and the case studies, it's much harder to get into those big conversations because you're competing against firms who are just a safer bet, basically. So if you don't have the brand reputation and you don't have the track record, the only thing you've got is the relationships and the deep expertise. And that expertise can only be deep if you're really focused in your proposition.
Yeah.
And most firms don't focus enough on a precise proposition that delivers and creates value for a particular person that they want to sell to. And you don't need many of those people. Like, it doesn't have to be a kind of broad-based thing for most boutique firms.
Yeah, completely agree. Let's talk about the relationship-led growth. And I mean, you called out the classic consultancy leader there that would rather be clearing their emails than having those conversations. I feel that we perhaps have retreated from that position of the face-to-face by default, and business just got done in that way. But when we consider that most consultancies, in my experience anyway, were sort of born out of that network mentality, right? The first few clients have got to come from those relationships that you already have in order to get into that delivery-led growth in the first place, right? So what's the task at hand there for those consultancies and those consultancy leaders that don't really feel so enthusiastic about building relationships, about having conversations, about going to those events and pressing the flesh? What's the task there? How do we push through that and that inertia?
So I think there's two sides to this. So and the kind of the fundamental principle here is, like, if you're in a role where part of your responsibility is to generate revenue for your consulting firm, you have to do something. And so if you're my starting point is, if you're just moving into that kind of level, is think about where you're personally most comfortable and strongest and double down on that. So that leads you either down the authority-led or the relationship-led growth, typically. If there comes a point where the relationships matter, so even if you're going authority-led growth, you've still got to be able to build relationships and build connection with people. And lots of people find that difficult. The unlock there, in my experience, is to lean into understanding about why you personally find that difficult. Like, what is it? You need to do this. You need to go and have a conversation with somebody. Like, what's the fear that's holding you back? And we call that the inner game. And we do quite a lot of work in our sales training on helping people understand their own inner game, build that self-awareness as to what is it that you're scared of. And very often people are scared of, there's levels to this stuff, right? You can get very, very deep with it. But there's a level of, like, well, I don't want to be seen to be irritating that person, or I don't want that person to judge me as not being an expert. I don't want to intrude on their time. Underneath that, there's often a belief that if I irritate that person, they'll reject me. I'm not worthy of spending time with them. They won't value me. And then there's deeper stuff that gets under that. And with some groups that are prepared to go there, we go there and they get incredible benefits from it. But the way that we try and reframe this with people is to say, when you're doing great work for your clients, right? You've had that delivery-led growth. You're successful enough to be operating in a consulting firm that's got success. You create value for your clients, and when you work with your clients, they like you, they value you, they ask you to come back. Why do you assume that if you go and talk to a similar person with the same problems, that they're not going to value what you say? Like, you're going there to try and help them. And as long as you can shift that mindset from, oh, I need to go and sell to this person, and instead say, I need to go and ask this person a bunch of questions and see how I can help them and build a relationship and see if there's stuff that I know that's valuable to them that I can share. And suddenly, for a lot of consultants, that's a much more comfortable place to be. It's like, oh, I've just got to go and, like, be a consultant. I don't have to sell. And the reality is that the chance that you walk up to someone at a conference, introduce yourself, and they say, oh, you're exactly the person that I need for this problem that I've got right now, that I've already figured out, and I've got a $500,000 budget put aside to fight for a consultant. Like, that doesn't happen, right? Like, so it's about prioritizing the relationship above all else. And if you're prioritizing the relationship and saying, I'm going to try and help these people, suddenly a lot of the fear drops away for a lot of people.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, there's a certain amount of serendipity that's required if you're going to meet the people who actually need what you've got to offer. Also, sometimes it's about the person behind the person. It's about who they know, who they might be able to introduce you to that is suffering from that challenge as well. So there's that dynamic to remember. But also, I feel that consultancies, and I give this advice all the time, you've just said it, let people experience your consultancy, your expertise. And a great way to do that a lot of consultancies do, is to run their own events, not to go to other people's conferences. Do you see that as a huge opportunity, and perhaps an untapped one on the relative scale of things, Deri, where people should be in a more comfortable environment, delivering their own expertise to perhaps even quite an intimate cohort of potential prospects, and let their expertise do the heavy lifting?
Yeah, I think, and that can be done digitally as well as in person. So, I mean, there's no real substitute for getting in the room with people, and whether that's breakfasts or lunch or dinners or what have you. If you can do that on a theme that they get value from as well, then that's super valuable. But for us, and what we encourage a lot of our clients to do, is just do more webinars, do more podcasts, like just use those forums to share your expertise. That one wrinkle on that I think is really valuable these days is to create, rather than a kind of full broadcast webinar where you're trying to get 50, 100, 150 people onto it, creating that as more of a small group discussion that's easy for people to attend. You get 10, 12 people sharing with their peers. You share some of your expertise, but you facilitate that as a conversation, and that enables both a bit of authority-led and a bit of relationship-led growth to come through, and builds your reputation as an expert. And we do loads of that type of thing, and we very regularly get people saying, thanks for sharing your expertise. I'm like, it's a pleasure to share our expertise, and obviously we're doing that because we also have commercial motives, but people get that. People don't mind. People don't go, oh God, you're already doing that because you want to sell us some work. Like, this is the nature of partnership. And if you can get comfortable with the fact that we're all trying to help each other here, then a lot of that fear and dislike of the concept of sales falls away, I find.
I feel the other aspect of being the facilitator in that sort of round table environment that we've been discussing is that you, of course, get recognised as the one who brings people together. You're facilitating that networking, those partnerships, and that business and referral that might happen as a result. So there is really a community aspect to that as well. And as we're talking about that, I now recognise we're going into that other top layer now, the authority-led growth. We're recording a podcast right now. You're very active on LinkedIn, as am I. I know you've got a LinkedIn newsletter. I have too. But there's going to be two aspects for any consultancy leader where they might sort of fall down, a little sort of barrier or a hiccup that they might encounter. The first is, of course, that not everybody's comfortable putting themselves out there, whether it's on video, whether it's just posting in general. And also they're very busy people. I don't see that their initial thoughts are going to be, I must post something on LinkedIn today. And the other aspect is how much to give away. I mean, you spoke about the value of giving away your expertise earlier on. How much of that is your IP? How much should people be comfortable to give away? Because, there is this sense of, will people just kind of take that and do the work without us? Do we make ourselves redundant? There's all this sort of head trash going on. What are your views on that, Deri?
Yeah, both very common challenges that come up, objections that we see when we try and encourage people to do more of this type of stuff. I guess I would just, at the start, I would just caveat and say, not everybody has to post on LinkedIn. You should post on LinkedIn if the people that you're trying to sell to are reading stuff on LinkedIn. And the reality is, for most B2B buyers, that's most people. We were training a senior group of partners at a firm recently, and there was one lady there who's doing 4 or 5 million revenue a year, so like doing a very good job in a boutique strategy consulting firm. and she was talking about the idea of posting stuff on LinkedIn, posting like videos on LinkedIn, and said whenever she sees anybody doing that, she's embarrassed for them. Like that was the level of like resistance and objection that she had. And I understand that. Like it's not a comfortable thing for a lot of people to do. The reality is, firstly, not many people post on LinkedIn. About 1% of users post at all.
Yeah.
So the white space to be available and visible is really strong. There's a bit of analysis I saw last year of people that had got promoted to partner in boutique consultancies, and across about 250, only 5 or 6 of them were recognizable experts in their domain. So the opportunity to become seen as an expert is huge, but you've got to get over that cringe. You've got to get over that resistance. And what I say to people with that is the algorithm actually works in your favor. Like if you post stuff that is not very interesting to people, not many people see it. So you can actually desensitize yourself by starting to post some things. And if you haven't got many followers, the chances of a consulting partner posting something that makes them go viral in some negative way is very slim. Like, share your expertise, share the things, and the best inspiration for this is like, what have you been talking to clients about over the last couple of weeks? Pick one of those things and write 250 words about it, record a 2-minute video about it, whatever you feel comfortable doing, and just put it out there. And the vast majority of the response, in my experience, is going to be positive, and you get some conversation going. What you have to do is not have this mindset of, well, I'm only going to do that if I immediately get leads off the back of it. And we have people saying that, like, it's not worth me posting on LinkedIn unless I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a lead off the back of it. Like, this stuff takes time. Building reputation takes time.
Well, in terms of sorry to cut across you, but the engagement side of things, I think is something that too many people weigh into. If they're not getting the thumbs up, if they're not getting the likes, the loves, the light bulbs, that they get a little bit dissuaded and kind of fall out of love with the whole idea and won't come back. And the recognition that I've come, or the realization I've come to, is that most of the impacts that you're creating doesn't go rewarded with those likes, with that engagement, with those comments. But it does sit with people. And I know because people come to me in person when I'm at events around the consultancy landscape, and I'll say, I love that video you posted the other day. They didn't like it. They didn't comment on it. Or they did like it. They just didn't like it. And it's so you never get that feedback, but you are creating the impact. And I think I think the message there is to do without expectation, right?
Yeah, do it with a spirit of generosity. I'm sharing stuff that's going to help people, and what you're really trying to do is any buyer is only in the right moment in their buying cycle to actually need you maybe 5% of the time as a rule of thumb. Or you think of that differently, the 5% of your universe of buyers are ready to buy from you at any one point in time. All you're really doing with this stuff is trying to be visible and remembered so that when that moment comes, you're the one they pick the phone up to. And that's all you're trying to do. You want to be as efficient as possible with it. There's various ways you can do that these days. You want to avoid falling into the AI slop trap. You've got to make sure that you are genuinely sharing valuable and unique thoughts. One relatively easy way in is to start commenting on other people's posts if that feels safer for people. And actually, with the way that the LinkedIn algorithm works at the moment, that's really powerful and beneficial anyway. So that again is a step in. I want to come to your second question around how much to share. And again, my basic rule of thumb of this is a bit more than you're comfortable sharing. Like if you think that by sharing your methodologies, your client can just and by sharing your methodologies, I mean even in a webinar where you might spend 40 minutes talking through something and explaining the frameworks that you use and how you track things. If you think that off the back of that, a client can pick that up and do what you do, then you've got a bigger problem than sharing it, because you're just not creating that much value, right? And the reality is that they can't. Like, clients come to consultants because they don't have the expertise, they don't have the capacity, they haven't done this 10 times across other organizations. So by sharing the way that you think about it, your unique perspectives, the methods that you use, all you're doing is saying to people, I know how to solve this problem and I can do it for you reliably and efficiently. And 99% of people are going to come and talk to you about that rather than go, oh, we can do this in-house. And even if they do try and do it in-house, they're not going to be successful in most cases. And then they might come back to you and say, oh, we tried to do it. We've realized we've made all these errors. Can you help us now? So yeah, general rule of thumb is share more than you're comfortable with.
Yeah, we all know that in the world of consulting, we all encountered those clients who tried to go and take the DIY route. It didn't work out. They come back to us, and yes, it doesn't do wonders for your sales cycle, but it should encourage you at least to put out more of your IP than perhaps you realise. Because you're absolutely right. People won't do it for themselves. People are by default, quite lazy. They'll take the path of least resistance, and also they want to expedite the results they're going to generate from this. So going the proven route with somebody who knows that path, you're paying for all the life lessons and everything that have gone before and the failures along the way. I want to change tack a little bit, Deri, because I know that you've, since last time we spoke, you've dove a little bit deeper into the world of AI.
Yeah.
In terms of the way that you're weaving that into the day-to-day operations at Honeycomb and the way that you're just generally doing business. So talk us through, what have you been working on? What realizations have you come to? How is AI kind of sitting within your business right now?
Yeah, sure. And I think great topic to talk about because a lot of firms are kind of wrestling with what do we do with AI at the moment. And firstly, I guess I just want to normalize for people that most firms are not very sophisticated in their use of AI yet, no matter what the headlines might tell you. We made a decision about 3 or 4 months ago now to move the whole business to basically run on Claude. And so we're going through a internal transformation process to make that happen. The thing that's really interesting, I think, there's two interesting leadership challenges here. One is, even in our relatively small firm, we've got 6 people centrally and a pool of about 15 trainers. We've seen the whole range of responses to this shift that we're trying to make. So we've got the enthusiastic adopters who are running far too fast, doing too much stuff and not following the program. That's me, by the way. We've got the other end, people who are like super resistant, worried about their jobs, not particularly wanting to dive into this technology. They're quite happy doing their job the way that they've been doing it very well, and they're worried about the impact of this technology. So that, which is not uncommon in technology changes, right? But from a leadership perspective, I think it's really important if people are starting to put this type of tech in and shifting the way that they work, that they're really conscious of the human side of that change and the way that different team members are going to react differently with different levels of confidence, and they all need to be taken on that journey. And then the other side that we're seeing is firstly, we're having to be very structured in defining and documenting how we do things. Like if you just throw AI into a messy, poorly organized set of processes and practices that have evolved over time, which is a broadly accurate description of most boutique consulting firms, then if you just throw AI on top of that, you're going to get a mess and introduce a whole ton of risk. So and this is one of the values for me of the process, is it forces a definition and a documentation of how you do things and do things well, and doing that from the lens of how do clients interact with us all the way through, and how do we make sure that each of those touch points is as good as it possibly can be. And part of that is then the realization that AI can't help with everything, and this comes back to the AI slop point. There's just such an increasing level of AI generated content that's out there. LinkedIn have recently introduced their "This looks like AI slop" reporting button. Substack, where we run our newsletter, has AI checkers that you can use for every draft post. Like using AI to generate final content, final output, I think is a big mistake. And we've slipped down that path, and we're pulling back from it to be much more like humans at every point. And the volume efficiency isn't worth it in my view. So that's one area where the AI is like the Claude is super valuable for us in a lot of our internal processes, and we're getting a load of benefit from it. The productivity's through the roof, but we're learning like which bits where we say, no, this is the bit that we're going to still own in a human way because the quality really matters. It's a differentiator, and we're going to essentially invest more to keep this really good. Is the mindset that we're having around that.
As we've just been advising consultancy leaders to get better at being that authority-led sort of business and growing in that way, I feel it's incumbent to tell them what's going on LinkedIn. You just mentioned the AI slot reporting button. I saw a statistic this week that LinkedIn have identified that 41% of content that is shared now on LinkedIn is AI generated.
Right.
They know that because of all the telltale signs and the analytics that they've put in place, of course, and they are really trying to dissuade it because it impacts on the experience that you'll have on that platform, the longevity of it, and we already, as you cited earlier, 1% of users are actually posting on a weekly basis. They're really active. So I think it's incumbent on us to say, look, yes, human first when it comes to the content that you're generating, or at least put that human lens and filter on the content that you're creating, because it's something that is actively going to be dissuaded and steered away from at an algorithmic level. But I did want to touch on the aspect of AI when it comes to really being AI native as you are as a business now. The thing I've noticed, Deri, is that lots of businesses just are, I don't want to call it jumping on the AI bandwagon, but they're implementing AI because they feel they should, rather than having a strong trigger or use case for it. Can I ask, what was the driver for you to move to an AI native model, to want to put Claude at the heart of the operations in Honeycomb?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there were two main things for us. So one was the setting ourselves up for scalability. And by using these kind of tools, we can scale much more efficiently in a nutshell. And the other thing was this forcing function for standardizing what we do and being really clear on what good looks like, which is a bit of a side benefit, but that also is an unlock for scalability. And ultimately, what this is going to allow us to do is grow faster, grow more efficiently, but also get me and my other managing director and our other company director, just get us out of the day-to-day of the business and focus on growth more, much, much faster than we'd be able to do that without it.
So it feels like an augmented SOP sort of process, really, that you're putting it with governance that's baked in, and keeping everybody honest and opening up that scalability for you. Right?
Exactly, and allowing us. And this is why when we think about like mapping everything that we do, we're doing it all through the lens of how does this interface into clients? How do clients experience this? Because if we just go for efficiency and we don't think about the client experience off the back end of it, our quality is going to drop, and that's going to be fatal. So we've got to maintain the quality so that unlock the efficiency to then let us help more people and grow faster. In a nutshell, that's the driver for it. Right? Yeah.
It can't compromise on your delivery-led growth, can it? Let's face it. So,
no, exactly. We're a trading business, not a consulting business, but it's the same mechanisms work for us as work for many consulting organizations, and the delivery has to be world class, and by delivery I mean every touch point that we have with the clients that we're trying to help.
Deri, the last topic I want to talk to you about is this idea of what you call the inner game of consulting. I think you mentioned that over the 20 plus years in the game that you've operated, and the learnings that you've made, you've observed that a lot of consulting leaders get in their own way. There's a lot of sort of procrastination. There's perhaps a lot of sort of head trash, sometimes imposter syndrome, perhaps that's imposing on people and stopping them from growing apace. What's your thinking around that whole game? What is the inner game of consulting, as you put it?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a topic very close to my heart, and something that we talk a lot about in the training room, because we can do all of the skills training in the world and you can set clear expectations with people, but we all know that with the best will in the world, we often want to do something and we don't do it. And in a nutshell, that's what the inner game is all about for me. So the outer game is like, right now you can see me talking, you can see me presenting certain level of energy and the words that are coming out of my mouth, etc. But you don't directly have visibility as to what's going on inside. And I'm perfectly comfortable and happy and enjoying this. But in other scenarios, I might be terrified or I might be angry, and that those feelings that crop up all the time impact our behaviors. And so when procrastination is a classic, right? So very often at multiple points during the working day, I'm a massive procrastinator. There'll be stuff that I get stuck on. One of the things that I'm better with this now, but when I first started Honeycomb, like sending out a proposal was a big deal for me. And I would procrastinate on hitting send, and I would end up sending a proposal 2 or 3 days later than I'd planned to, because I'm sitting on it, because I'm sitting with some fear.
Yeah.
And the fear there is, I'm asking for too much, or I'm going to be rejected, or I'm asking for too little and I'm going to be taken as a mug, or I haven't articulated it right, or they're going to be annoyed with me. Like, there's all kinds of stuff churning away, and I've done a lot of work over the years, so I understand why I have those feelings and which ones are rational and which ones aren't, and that allows me to work through it. So that's an example. And almost every consultant we talk to when we introduce these concepts has something like that they get in their own way. Yeah.
Me too.
And so we talk about a bunch of different concepts that help people just build that self-awareness. And in the sales space, it's massive. We talked earlier about the guy with a 10 million revenue line who is worried about going to talk to people. Right? It's very common that people fall into those inner game blockers. And we can talk about all the methods and the skills in the world, but if you don't overcome those, you're not actually going to be able to do anything differently. And that goes for the boom and bust cycle, or the belief that you don't have enough time, the belief that you're not good enough, imposter syndrome is massive. All of these are inner game things that we can address. And it's my favorite moment in the training room is when you start to talk about these concepts and someone realizes that they're just getting in their own way for reasons that they don't need to worry about so much, and the unlock there is huge.
Amazing. So, Deri, it's been a pleasure to have you back. As you know, because you've been here before, we always wrap up with our regular feature, Snog, Marry, Avoid. Catching you on the hop with this one, perhaps, but a snog is a quick win. What would, based on perhaps what we've discussed today, what would you advocate is a quick win that consultancy leaders can implement pretty much straight away to create some greater impact?
I'll stick with the inner game thing. And the rule of thumb here is the growth you need is through the thing that scares you. So if you're sitting there thinking, I should do this thing and I'm not doing it for some reason, then the quick win is take the plunge and just do it. Nothing bad will happen, I promise you.
Yeah, of course. Marry is something you couldn't live without in business. What perhaps one of these concepts that you think is there for the long term should be the mainstay?
Well, I have to say Claude right now, although I'm not sure it's we're through the honeymoon period and into the rocky bit where you're really learning about each other and figuring out how to live together. But if Claude fell over tomorrow, we would have fairly material problems right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. And avoid, what do you think people are still doing in the world of consulting that we really need to ditch and do away with?
I think just waiting for work to come to you. Like there are too many consultants out there now. There's too much visibility. It's too easy to find other people. If you are in that delivery-led growth mode and you're just trying to do good work and hoping that you get more of it, you're going to get stuck. And maybe you've been flatlining. You're going to start going south soon because more and more firms are waking up to this realization that we have to be proactive. We have to get out there, and they're going to steal your lunch. So, yeah, get proactive.
Great way to put it, and great advice, Deri. It's been a pleasure. I thought we might struggle for things to talk to the second time around, but I feel like we could go on all day. Thank you so much for joining us on the Unique Boutique today.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Matt. Good to talk again.